Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with a video on the story of 2014 World Cup Prizm, and more importantly, the one primary aspect that we can take away from it, and how it impacts basically everything you do within the hobby, your overall success, your overall enjoyment, and all that fun stuff. So that is what this video is going to be about. We'll start with the origin of 2014 Prizm. You can look at the checklist here, and I'll sort of scroll through the site and show you what's going on in terms of the set itself, but fundamentally, 2014 Prizm was one of the first big releases in soccer that was able to add the, newer inventions on a bigger scale with a bigger brand of parallels, sticker autos at the time, and some fun insert sets and other chases throughout with, fun one-of-ones, a nice color scheme of parallels, and all that fun stuff. While this was, a notable product in the sense that it was, a bit different than the typical Panini release, that is also what we want to know, is that Panini did typically release things for every single World Cup, at least for a long standing at this point. You have 2010, where Messi and Ronaldo have these sort of metallic cards that are, pretty sought after. You have 2006, where you have the first World Cup of Messi and Ronaldo. You also have the stickers that date all the way back to 1970. And so Panini's had a presence at the World Cup for a long time. Prizm is sort of seen as the, new entrant into the modern hobby. And notably, this is the first time that Panini attached the Prizm brand to a World Cup product, and that is really what set this set on fire for a long time to come. So we'll talk about how that had come to be. So we'll use the Topps Chrome LeBron as just a nice card to really, show where the hobby was going, not just soccer in particular. In 2019 to 2020, there was a bit of a move that would indicate some, good signs in terms of where things were going. And then COVID hit in 2020, as everyone knows, and that was really, a big question mark, because now we know what happened was that, everyone got put inside, everyone is now buying online, everyone has time to do all this, and has the free time to adventure, right? Going into it though, there was a lot of serious worries of what's this going to be like? Are people really going to want to buy cards during a time where there are much bigger factors going on, much more bigger worries that you should have? Are people really going to want to buy cards? And so in 2020, of course, the answer is yes, people want to buy cards. That's what happens, right? And as those cards get more expensive, soccer starts to become this sort of side thing that people are talking about, because if stuff's getting too expensive elsewhere, well, what's something else that people are probably going to enjoy and that's really, really cheap? And one of them was soccer, right? There ended up being a lot of other ones that people went to, WWE, UFC, eventually, tons of really, really niche things. But at this time, going into the summer of 2020, there was this, big clamoring for soccer. People were really starting to whisper. And soccer ended up being one of the first sports to return during this time. Basketball also did as well, which also plays a role, because as basketball's ending in that summer, people then look to the next thing. What do we want? And what they wanted was Prizm soccer, and that's how we got there. The Prizm basketball hype and craze moved over to soccer. There was Prizm rookie card listings on eBay when, in reality, it could have been a 10th year card for the player, but it's still being listed as a rookie because the first Prizm was going to gain this massive narrative, right? And so that was the first ever narrative to swarm the soccer hobby and, sort of dominate the day. So we'll go on over to the Card Ladder site to talk a little bit about the past and present of this 2014 Prizm here. The card in question, as we have seen, this is currently a pop 2371, so keep that in mind. We'll talk more about that as we go. The market cap is 337,000, which for soccer is a respectable amount, I would say. And if we scroll on down, you can see the little tease of what is to come. What we want to note here is, again, these sales are in 2014, 2015, so as you can see at the time, people didn't really care. These were PSA 10 base cards going for about the cost of grading, so really, you're not going to send these in even if you have them, and if you, are collecting the set, this is one of the best players, so the set itself, you wouldn't feel is all that worthy of getting graded. Certainly not at this point. In 2018, you can see there was a sale also for $6, so it wasn't gaining any traction over time. Soccer wasn't blowing up. There wasn't surely enough people to warrant 2,400 people paying a good amount for this. And then over time that changes, right? And so here you see an astronomical rise. In 2020, we see right there in March, it was $76, which is obviously still a pretty big gain that shows that, soccer was getting a little bit of hype. You then move to June, where this is $495. I do remember this time right here, sort of the first big bump. I was seeing influencers, like people on Snapchat for some reason, were like talking about how the Messi Prizms were going to go up. I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. Turns out, with the power of social media, influencers talking about things and, narratives in the hobby, we go all the more higher up to what is 3,300 or actually 3,700 at one point in time. And, I don't know how many sales are going on up here. Obviously, you can see that this is about a 2-week stretch in time where it was that high. If we go down here, that's July, and over here is October. So there was a 3-month craze with a really, 2-month mania sort of peak. And yeah, none of that has any relation to what happened afterwards, right? These dropped a lot down to 400. The hobby itself sort of boomed in this, late 2020 to 2021 beginning. And, with that, most cards reached new highs. This card didn't even get close to new highs because there were simply too many getting graded. We'll talk about that now. 2371. In a PSA 10, at least, there are 3,700 and a 9 and a decent amount of 8s. But if we look at the chart, you can see it's sort of tailed off. You can't see the numbers at the bottom because the, I guess the page doesn't let me get there. I can pull it up. But yeah, basically, now it's evened off a good bit. What you would have seen at the beginning, though, is, I guess, sort of what you're seeing here. I mean, in the small frame of time from 2021 to near 2022, there were 600-700 copies graded, and that's already after they were worth a ton. So there was obviously a lot more getting graded in the beginning. I do remember a time where they were under 100 pop, and so when they're low pop, when they're seen as rare, people get really excited, and it's very easy to sort of manipulate or push these prices higher. Some people might just be pushing out of desire, some people might be manipulating, or it might be a mix of both, which tends to happen at times. And so really you can see the massive fall. Now what I want to do and what we're going to do, I'm going to go get a bunch of different cards for Messi right now. I don't even know what the cards are live. I'm just going to pick a bunch that I know, were moderately collectible at the time and how those have performed, right? I'll assume here, let's say you buy, the comparison's going to be 10 base cards for 2,000 right here. Not at the top peak, but at a pretty high price during a mania for an item, right? So I'm going to say 10 for 2,000, so 20,000 total, and we're going to compare it to what 20,000 in total would have done in say more collector Messi items. So I'll be back in a second. So I've done a little bit of mathing, and here we are. So the first person is the follower in this instance, the one that we talked about prior, who's buying 10 2014 Prizms in a PSA 10 grade. Now, keep in mind, this is not me shitting on Prizm, right? I actually like the Prizm brand. I think it's, A-okay and has a very nice spot in the hobby for soccer. This is more to say that the narrative at one moment in time probably isn't going to turn out well, and that narrative is always changing, right? Nonetheless, it was 20,000 for the 10 of these in August of 2020. It is now 1,400, which is obviously a significant loss. We'll get more to that in a second. The collector, on the other hand, let's say they bought 5 of the most, pretty notable early Messis that are relatively available. We have a PSA 10 sticker that you bought for 2,500 and is now 1,700. We have the card that is theoretically bought in August of 2020 for 5,000 is now sold for 2,500. So decent losses on the first two that will be made up by the rookies here. First off is the S-Day sticker up from 2,750 to 5,000, and the 71 bits is up 5,500 to 6,200. So smaller gain there. And then finally we have Monday Chromo, which is gone from 2,600 to 1,900. Actually a little bit of a loss. So obviously not all flowers and sunshine, but pretty decent in terms of comparing the collector to the narrative hype driven person, right? And so we'll get to that now. We have what is the collector spending 18.3K and now having 17.3 in value, negative 5%, compared to the investor, which spent 20K and now has 1.4K. I use the word investor here. You could use, sort of fly-by-night speculator that's trying to get in on something he doesn't know, or that's trying to ride the wave that other people are, whatever it may be, right? And so basically you can see that the narrative at the time didn't hold up at all, and you would have just been better off, buying things that maybe you just enjoy and seem pretty key for that player, despite all of the hubbub of what everyone was talking about in the hobby. And so that brings me to new narratives, right? These are just a few of the many. First off, we have 2017 Topps Chrome. This blue Messi's gone from 500 to 1500, almost tripling in price during a time when, we saw the Prizm fall massively, and we've seen the rookies sort of, stay in line. Next to that, we have the Flawless Autos, this one in particular, from near 5,000 to 12,000. Keep in mind, I had to do a little bit of guesstimating based on some of these comps because it's not all perfect. Some of them are low numbered, and that's sort of, one of the issues here. This green Treble Messi was one of them that I did have to do some calculating on, but Treble was a set that no one cared about in 2020. $350 there for that Messi. It actually sold late 2019, close to early 2020 for like $50-$60, I think, and now is currently worth $5,500. So absolutely massive gain during that time, much more than the prior two. We also have something like Select Camo. People like the field levels. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the horizontals. Nonetheless, up from 500 to 750. And then we have finally the Kaboom Gold. This one, it says PSA 10, but I'm going PSA 9 pricing. Went from 4,000 to 10 to 15,000 because a PSA 10 sold recently for 33. So did some math there, and look, all of these are up massively, right? And that can become very enticing for almost anyone in the hobby. I mean, there's still a lot of soccer collectors, despite what some of the key cards have done. There's still a lot of people collecting, and now everyone's sort of seen, a lot of the cards rise and fall, and so they're always trying to find these new narratives, and these are a lot of the narratives that are, sort of hitting as of now. But like we talked about throughout this entire video, what happens when that narrative no longer hits? What happens when people aren't, into the same thing that you are, maybe 5-10 years down the line, when, some of these sets seem kind of random? Maybe we look on them very fondly, but that's always the risk associated, right? When you're buying when the narrative exists, you do not know if that narrative will continue to exist, which is typically why just buying cards without narratives, or just because you enjoy them or find value in it, is probably the best way to go. I can go through it in my head. We started with the Prizm boom, right? And then after that, we get into, sort of the hype craze of rookies. Then after that, we go into pre-modern. Everyone's buying high-grade pre-modern for crazy prices that are now down 90%. And then after that, once people got done with pre-modern, everyone went to go buy, old vintage stuff that's now down, sometimes 80-90% in high grades. And that's just sort of the cycles of narratives, right? They come, they go, and everyone along the way has some fun on that ride, whether it be one way or another, and hopefully you learn a thing or two. But my point is that you're probably better off just doing what you enjoy, buying what you find value in, and silencing a lot of the noise. I know it's hard, I struggle with it, but I'm going to try to do a lot better at it and really just try to be my own person. I think that that's what everyone should strive for, not just in collecting, but in life. Don't try to, fake who you are, fake your collection to appease others so that you can be in the friend group and you can be their buddy. If you're buying a card they don't like, that's okay. It doesn't matter. As long as you're having fun, as long as you're collecting the way you want to, I think that's the real big issue here. And if you do that, I think you'll win at the end of all of it. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know, a bit of a different video. Happy to get back to the, videos like this, though, and hopefully I'll do some more editing like this in the future, make it nice and fun and entertaining. Would love to hear your thoughts down below on what you think of this in general, the whole topic, what narratives maybe you like, maybe you don't, or how you've just been going about collecting on your own. Would love to hear it below. And if you want some more videos like this, as soon as I go live, of course, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and